What an honor and an absolute pleasure to be here at the second edition of SIBCA. Thanks to SIBCA, Mr. Abraham, Larry, Lubna, and the team for the invite and giving me the opportunity to contribute to a topic that's very close to my heart, sustainability. I'm Krishna, and I head up the MEA business unit for Mayflex and Excel. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll be talking about sustainability and focus on some of the key terminologies and areas for us all, whether you're a manufacturer, integrator, or an end user, that we can all focus on and for us to be aware about. So first and foremost, when we think about sustainability, what do most of us think about? I think I won't be wrong in saying that for us all, we tend to think about environment. And environment is obviously the key and the center stone of sustainability, but I don't think it is just about environment, because for something to be sustainable, pardon the pun, but you need to think about more than one element of it. So if you want to look at the actual things that contribute to sustainability, you need to look at environment for sure, but then it's a combination of the society and the economy as well. So the actual definition of sustainability, just to set the scene there, it is about fulfilling the needs of current generation without affecting the needs of future generation. And while we do this, we should also balance the economy, we should balance the society and the societal well-being, and then care for the environment as well. So that really is the definition of sustainability as I would like to sort of look at it. Moving on from there, we live in this wonderful planet, which is the Earth, and Earth has this wonderful capability to be able to regenerate the exploitation that we as humans do on the Earth. So the amount of materials we dig up from the Earth, up to a certain point, Earth is able to regenerate that every year. So there's a term coined some time ago, which is called the Earth Overshoot Day. For people to be aware of, if you look at the 1970s, when literally it was the start of the Industrial Revolution, the amount of materials we were taking out of Earth was able to regenerate. Fast forward on to 2023, we're now coming to a stage where we need about 1.7 times the size of Earth for it to be able to regenerate the amount of materials we're taking out of the Earth. Yeah. So there is a specific date every year that's been set. That's called the Earth Overshoot Day. Over the last couple of years, it's been around the first week of August. So 2nd August 2023 was the Earth Overshoot Day this year. So anything else we've taken out from Earth post that, Earth is not going to be able to regenerate. It is just simply not possible. It is a finite amount of materials that Earth has and a finite amount of resources that it's able to regenerate, and we should all be mindful of that. And therein lies the importance of sustainability. So moving on from that, why is sustainability so important now? You've seen from the Earth Overshoot Day that the amount of materials we're using from the Earth is increasing. And you've all seen and surely heard of COP28 that's coming up in UAE, 30th of November. It's a milestone event here in UAE. But going back in time, COP21 was a historic event that's laid some good foundation for the future of the world from a sustainability perspective. Let's look back and see about the climate change conventions. These have been happening from the year 1979. The first event happened in 1979 in Geneva, and from there, there's been many versions of that, and obviously we're now at COP28, which is the 28th edition. And this is a milestone event that happened in 2015 in Paris. And why it is so important is because at the end of COP21, around 196 countries entered into a legally binding treaty to certain measured objectives on sustainability. Of those, specifically to look at, are they agreed to cut greenhouse gas emissions to reduce the global temperature increases to 1.5 degrees below pre-industrial levels. So if you look at 1970, whatever the average temperature was, the idea is to try and get the temperature to not go over 1.5 degrees from that. And to be able to do that, if we were to achieve this, then the greenhouse emissions should peak by 2025. So we are still in the pace of growing, and there's a lot more greenhouse emissions that are happening. By 2025, that should peak, and from there, we should start tapering it off if we were to achieve the goal that's been set by the COP21 committee. COP21 was also important for another reason, because that was also the first time that the treaty actually set something called nationally determined contributions. So countries were supposed to give specific measures that they were going to take year on year to show their commitment to be able to meet their objective at the end of the specified time period. So if you look at UAE, for example, the host of COP28 this year, I mean, the country has been in the forefront of committing to some of these. So UAE now has a Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, which was not the case a number of years ago. And they've set out accelerating the action towards green, inclusive, and resilient economy. How has our country done that? So one of the things they're doing is that in terms of the naturally determined contributions, they are the first country in the world to actually provide the third updated edition of the NDC. And it's coming at a good time, especially when we are the host for this this year. So UAE's commitment is to reduce the greenhouse emissions by 182 million tons and over 40% emission reduction by the year 2030. Very aggressive targets indeed, but it's good to see the ambition and the aim to be the front runner, certainly in the region and wider along the globe as well. UAE has a net zero vision by 2050. UAE wants to be carbon neutral, so to achieve that, they want 18% reduction in 2030, 60% reduction by 2040, and then a complete sort of neutral environment by the year 2050. So that's a little bit about the targets, and in terms of what the country is also doing is that, very ambitious again, the aim is to plant 100 million mangroves. This is not number of trees, but mangroves. So 100 million mangroves to be planted throughout the country. There's already been areas identified for this as well. For anybody that's interested, go on to the ministry website. You can see the full plan and the blueprint of it as well. It's just fantastic what the country is doing and looking to do forward as well. So that sort of being the basics of sustainability and what's going around the world, we're certainly not going to learn everything about sustainability in the 20 minutes that I've got to speak here, but we thought we'll look at 5 key areas that I would like to introduce you all to, and then hopefully you can pick up from there and learn more about that moving forward. I want to focus on packaging materials that are used for the supply of materials into projects or into our houses, and then looking at FSC certification for those, zero waste to landfill, and then setting the tied supply chain goals and looking at something specific called EPDs, which is the Environmental Product Declaration. So looking at packaging, why do we want to look at that? Every product that is coming across to the projects is all packed in typically more or less a single-use plastic packaging. So single-use plastic packaging is one of the biggest problems we are facing collectively because majority of these are ending up as waste in the oceans. So what is the problem we face today? More than 8 million tons of plastic is dumped into our oceans every single year. Half of the plastics that we're using today have all been manufactured just in the last 15 years. So 50% of any plastic you see today is manufactured just in the last 15 years. And the worst problem of all is that plastic takes a long, long time to degrade. It takes over 1,000 years. And if on an average we tend to live 80 years, God willing, then you're looking at 12 generations down from you for that plastic you put on the ground to be degraded. So that is a real problem that we have on hand. And what is the impact of this today? If nothing is done about the plastic waste and the amount of plastic we're using, by 2050, the number of pieces of plastic in the ocean is outweighing the number of fish that are there. More than 32% of the global plastic waste ends up in the ocean. That's 1/3 of every plastic we use ends up in the ocean. And then lastly, over 500 pieces of marine animals have already either been eaten or they've been entangled in plastic. I'm sure you've all seen videos of this somewhere or the other. So this is a real problem that we are facing. So how do we address this? One of the ways to look at this is that is to move into plastic-free packaging. And specifically for us all, one way or the other, we are all supplying it to the construction industry. Construction industry is the second major contributor to plastic waste in the world. A little bit about our company, Mayflex and Excel. As one manufacturer in this industry, we've moved to plastic-free packaging about 4 years ago, and we've already seen some wonderful benefits of that. We're able to supply 100% of the products in plastic-free packaging, and this is some examples of how the products used to be. As you can see, every product's with its own single-use plastic bag. They've all now been converted into plastic-free packaging. As one manufacturer, the data's there not to, I mean, of course, we are proud of having done this as a company, but it's not just about us. It's to show you that as one manufacturer, we are able to remove 47.5 tons of single-use plastic from the supply chain since we've done this. And it's a major impact. And just in my little sort of piece of industry, ELV, there is over hundreds of global companies operating in the segment. If we all can do that, you then times it by tens and hundreds, and you can see the impact straight away. So an example of how this has benefited, we are one of the approved brands at the Red Sea Global Development in Saudi. When we won the first 3 projects, the client asked us, so we've been talking about this plastic packaging. How is this impacting? How are we benefiting? But we worked out that in those 3 resorts that we won, over a quarter of ton of plastic was saved versus using the standard plastic packaging that was available in the market and using the Excel's plastic-free packaging. So these are benefits they can have today. And if you're a manufacturer, think about it. If you're an end user, ask for it. That's the only way the market's going to move towards that. Now, when I talk about plastic packaging and say that we moved over to recycled paperback packaging, etc., then one of the end users asked me a couple of weeks ago, oh, so does that mean that you stop using plastic and you're going to cut down more trees? The good thing is that you don't actually have to do that these days. And that's where FSC certification comes in. FSC certification stands for Forest Stewardship Council. What this does is that it gives you a certificate that to confirm that the material you're using is either a recycled or it's been sourced from a sustainable forest or a sustainable environment. And one of the things you should probably all do is when you're all getting your deliveries home, if you're getting a pizza delivered for the weekend, turn the box, look at the end of it, and do you see if you see the certification, right? It just shows that that material has been sourced from a sustainable environment and a sustainable forest. So that's what FSC certification is. I mean, obviously our brand Excel, we've now completely switched over all for packaging to be FSC certified as well. But it's not just us. You can see that in a number of daily use products, whether it's in a supermarket, you're getting delivery from a restaurant, have a look at it and try and ask for it. And it gives you a choice now, to see if a manufacturer is using that. Perhaps in your mind, you're going to start giving a bit more preference to them, and rightly so. So that's FSC certification. So to try and sort of combat the plastic waste we have, try and move over to plastic-free packaging. And when you're looking at plastic-free packaging, certainly aim to get the FSC certifications as well. The next topic I would like to look at is zero waste to landfill. We focused on packaging of materials and how we can contribute positively to the environment. The other problem today the world has is the amount of waste that's going into landfill. We don't see these areas, but you can take my word for it, having spent a lot of time preparing for the topic. The amount of landfill sites around the world is just incredible. The largest landfill site in the world today as a single site is in the US, and the numbers are shocking to me. It's over 2,200 acres as one single site in Vegas, Nevada, where it's being used as a landfill. There is 50 million metric tons of materials that are going as waste into that one landfill alone. And this is obviously just the number one. Imagine that dotted around the globe. It's just a big impact that it's having on the environment. So what does zero waste to landfill mean? It is exactly what it says. When you're a manufacturer or an installer or an end user, the amount of waste that we are generating, sometimes we are probably turning a blind eye to it, and that needs to stop. And we need to reduce this. You may not be able to start with the goal of zero waste to landfill, but I suppose if we all can say that whatever our waste percentages was, we worked through a program to get to zero waste to landfill in time, then that's a realistic ambition to have. And this is also going to give you benefits as an organization, apart from the obvious benefits of the environment. You're also going to be able to reduce cost, because waste typically happens because it's not been planned very well. And so to summarize, it is all about reducing waste and beneficially reusing the waste that we generate as well. So if you're an end user, how do you measure this and how do you know that this company is doing that? Well, there are independent certification bodies out there that provide certification that your company is certified for zero waste to landfill. So again, we looked at FSC certification before, and now zero waste to landfill certification, meaningful ways of US customers or end users to ensure that the company you're working with has the right certifications. So we've spoken about packaging, FSC certification, zero waste to landfill. Now, for us as a manufacturer, when we set out to do this, could we have achieved all of this if we work on our own? It's absolutely impossible. Today, we live in a complex and a tiered supply chain where no one company gets the product out from the raw material and deliver it to site. There are multiple companies involved in the supply chain of that. So if you look at the case of, let me take SIBCA as an example, with your permission. So if SIBCA were to sit here today, and they would have all of these partners around here today sitting here in as the first level of suppliers, they then have a number of other suppliers in other factories in the back end of it working towards to achieve the goal that SIBCA might set out after this event from a sustainability perspective. So you can't set out saying that this is what I'm going to achieve. You need to have a realistic plan to say I'm going to work with the suppliers in the back end at various stages to get to where we want to. Good example of that, when our company started off wanting to do plastic-free packaging, it's not that if you're using 10 different factories to manufacture, every factory is at a different level of advancement in terms of technology and being able to source. So then you might have to involve at a further level down there to be able to support them to achieve the goal that you want to do. And this is where having the tiered approach is very important. So you'll have multiple layers of it, but some of them to look at is that you will have a direct working relationship with the supplier. For SIBCA, this would be all of us that are here. Then you would have indirect. That could be delegating us or JCI Honeywell's to say that this is what we would like you to do with the suppliers that are working behind you. And then you'll have a collective approach, and then you will also have a global approach where you're collaborating with global manufacturers to achieve a common goal. So the key point here is to try and sort of make you all understand that it is not about one company going out and trying to achieve what they want. You always need to work in a tiered approach and work with the suppliers to achieve the goal in a set period of time. The last topic on this I would like to touch upon is EPDs. We looked at a fair few. So EPDs stand for Environmental Product Declaration. This certification gives you transparency of the impact the material you're going to have today on site has had throughout its life cycle. And there is an international standard for it as well, which is the EN 15804 standard. This is the newest standard for sustainability for construction works and services. Again, there are third-party labs that provide certification services. As a supplier, Mayflex and Excel, we've got these certifications now. And so this, as I mentioned, gives you a clear and transparent manner of measuring the impact that material has had to site. Think about this if you're an end user. This way now, you're able to compare two manufacturers providing the same product, and you can see which ones had the least impact on the environment. And perhaps if they're offering the same function, same performance, then you will be able to choose the most sustainable choice there. And that's where EPD certifications are beneficial. It actually is quite an extensive process. Just put a small flowchart to give you an idea of the various stages that are involved. To achieve an EPD certification, it could take up to 6 to 9 months to get an EPD certification for one product, because it's an intensive amount of data collection that happens all the way from the raw material. So if I'm supplying a copper data cable or a CCTV camera, when was that copper dug out of the ground? How much environmental impact did that have? And you need to go back to that vendor to be able to find out the actual data for the energy it's taken, the time it's taken, and the effort it's taken, and do that all the way through the process as well. And then you conduct something called a life cycle assessment, and then the third-party certification bodies check through all of this and then ensure that the information you provided is correct and accurate, and then give you the EPD certification. So certainly a very good thing to look at, and we are in the process of now launching what we call as an Excel Green offer, and that's, again, just as an example to show something for all of us to think about. So whatever we looked at today is all that's available now. It's certainly not a comprehensive list, but 5 sort of key points that hopefully I've given you some introduction to. Moving on towards the future, certainly when the next CIBCA comes around, I think the next topic you're going to see on the screen is what a lot of us will be talking more and more about. This is certainly something we're already talking about within manufacturer community, and I think you'll hear more about it. So rather than me talking about it, let me play you a video. And look at this in the context of what I mentioned about Earth Overshoot Day earlier on in the presentation. Earth has a limited capacity to regenerate. So the more and more virgin materials we keep digging out of the ground, you're not giving the chance for Earth to regenerate. So how do we fix this is what comes up in the next video.
Life is a circle. All that grows returns to where it began, the Earth. And from there, it grows again, forming a perfect cycle. But we have broken that cycle. Our economy is growing unsustainably at the expense of nature. We have created a linear economic model. Make, use, dispose. We extract millions of tons of natural resources every year and turn them into materials that we use and consume. And then we simply throw them away. But what if we designed products that we can reuse, refurbish and repair, and only extract new resources when we really need them? We would use less new materials and energy and protect our natural wealth. Inspired by nature, a circular approach would boost the European economy, contributing to innovation and job growth, as well as reducing pollution and helping the environment by preserving our precious natural resources. Carpooling, recycling materials, repairing and reusing, using green energy. Many things we already do are part of going circular. A circular economy is possible and brings new opportunities. And it isn't just good for nature and the economy, it's good for our quality of life and our health. A circular economy is a good way of living well within the limits of our planet.
The idea here is that, and for us all to remember, is that today we've adopted a linear model of material usage. We make it, we take it, we make it, we use it, and we dispose it off. And that's where it goes into the landfills as well. And we need to change that into a circular economy. So our group organization, Sonapa, has already adopted this approach, where they are looking at various stages of supply chain, at suppliers and partners, our company ourselves, and then at customers as well. When we say we look at customers, it's also because when you've now supplied materials to site, and then you're leaving them to dispose of the waste materials, what if us as a supplier is now looking at that and saying that, can we take back whatever is not used on site or whatever is going to waste, and then recycle and reuse it, take the responsibility on ourselves? That's perhaps an option to look at as well. And then a couple of last slides for me to look at is about material consumption. When we started in 1970, we were looking at 28.6 gigatons of materials that are being used. And moving forward into 2050, we're now looking at using anywhere between 170 to 184 giga of virgin material from the ground if we don't change the way we are working today. So we're going to be using, in 80 years, you're going to be using 9 times more materials from the ground, and that's something we need to change. I'll leave this with a quote from a British statistician, Mr. Schumacher. Infinite growth of material consumption in a finite world is an impossibility. And let's all think about that and process that and put that into use as well. I hope that was all of use today. Thank you.